Okay, I am going live again. I've had some issues with my audio that I was unaware of, so thank you for dropping me a message there. And I am hoping that my audio is going to be working now. I'm not sure what happened, truthfully. It must have had something to do with user error. Um, but I'm hoping to be able to ensure that this talk is properly able to be heard. So if you're tuning in now, please do drop a comment there. Let me know that my audio is working now, okay? Um, so I'm going to get back to talking about our healing journey. And unfortunately, I was just going on a really good discourse, but that was unfortunately not captured because there was something wrong with my audio, so that's unfortunate. And this week I wanted to talk about our soul journey and the healing that we have. And uh, I was talking about how we are all on the healing journey. Mankind is of a fallen nature, and this can be misunderstood or distorted, and it's often used in a very dogmatic way. But in my very many years of seeking and of studying and having insights, I've come to understand what these ancient teachings have really been about. And so, on the topic of spiritual healing, again, we're all of a fallen nature, and we know this to be true because we are divine beings. And so, if we are not fully living up to our divine spiritual potential, then we haven't fully realized our spiritual power and abilities. And that all comes with experience, with learning. Stacy, thank you very much for joining me. I love to see you here. That's lovely. I do hope you could hear me because I was just streaming a moment ago and my audio wasn't working. And it was a real shame because I had some great things to say that was being inspired by spirit. But so I'm going to carry on at this time. So thank you very much for joining. Um, so the ancient knowledge that I've really have taken many years to sort of study and uncover and contemplate to be able to get the understanding of that. Um, it all stems from ancient Egypt. They were um, they were enlightened, and they had well, they got their knowledge from Atlantis. And so they were a very enlightened society. But what's happened over the centuries, over the millennial, is that this knowledge has been really passed down in a very secretive way, and it's passed down with the intention of trying to be secret. It is passed down with the intention of concealing the true spiritual meanings. Now, why do they want to do that? Why was that intention? It's for the sole purpose that the knowledge, the spiritual keys, they did not want it to fall in. It's typically talked about in the hands of the profane, or do not want this knowledge to be seen by the eyes of the profane, which means someone that's not initiated, someone that's not ready to hold all of that power, which is when we harness all of our spiritual energy, it is powerful. Because how do I know that? Is because we are divine beings. We are spirit incarnated, and we've come here to this plane to be able to understand that truth and how to be able to grow our soul and really make that expression in the physical world here. And so this knowledge has been hidden over the centuries intentionally, but it has fallen in the hands of individuals that misuse it. Absolutely. I know that this ancient knowledge that we have the ability to be able to harness and manipulate natural laws. And if you think that I'm out there when I say that, know that that's what Jesus Christ actually did. He was enlightened enough to be able to perform miracles because he had realized his full spiritual, um, his whole spiritual truth, or he was fully realized in his spiritual nature. Thank you, Spirit just gave that to me. And so he was a great medium, and in fact, many people will talk that he was the greatest medium that ever walked the earth. He was able to channel healing energy, divine energy. He was able to manifest. He was able to manifest out of thin air. Why? Because he was able to know how to harness the natural laws. And so these natural laws are keys that we can also start to understand how to tap into. But it is a process of unfoldment, of enlightenment. It doesn't happen overnight. And why? It's because we're still refining our ego self, because there's still growth to do. And that kind of led me to the topic of spiritual healing and how when we heal spiritually, we pass it on to the generations that come after us. And we heal the generations also that have come before us because our ancestors, of course, are still in spirit and they are still evolving spiritually also. And so it's this process of ascension where we continue to evolve and raise in vibration because we are growing in our consciousness and in our awareness. But what happens is that we have these blocks, right? So we're growing up in this society that um, really we have asphyxiated spirit from our societies, which when we look at ancient societies, spirit was embedded in all of the daily practices. And so if you want to start to really connect with your full spiritual self, start to implement daily spiritual practices. And so the ancients, they knew and understood, and I just pulled up the high priestess card, which represents knowledge. It represents wisdom, the esoteric wisdom, and your intuition, which is the key to knowledge also, because as we start to learn how to move ourselves and tap further into our soul, our intuition will speak to us and it will bubble up through us, through our soul, and it will come to our conscious awareness. And that's how we receive knowledge. So we live in a society where we are trained to just focus on the physical, our physical senses, and we are trained to work through our analytical, logical mind, but we don't know how to work from our spiritual mind, which is the source of inspiration and the source of wisdom and knowledge. And that is how we become fully realized. It's through learning how to connect further with our spiritual mind. But that connection has atrophied in our current culture of the um, because of patriarchy, really. It was patriarchy that asphyxiated all of the spiritual elements from our societies. Um, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is about down with men or down with toxic masculinity or anything like that. It's understanding the divine feminine and the divine masculinity. And when we remove the daily spiritual practices, then we disconnect ourselves from source. And so we have these generations and generations of lost individuals, individuals that have really committed transgressions upon one another, upon ourselves, from being misguided, from having this lack of ability to connect with our own soul and spirit for guidance. Because, once the church got involved, um, it it really took spirituality out of our day-to-day lives. And it became that was the place where you connected with divinity was within these four walls. And don't get me wrong, I find church absolutely awe-inspiring. If I go to a some particular churches, the presence of spirit is so profound that I'm moved by it. And when the congregation sings hymns and spiritual songs, it's uplifting. Um, but it's still within that context, it became lost that we had the ability to connect with spirit on our own. And so this has been really the battle of religion. But keep in mind that the people that were leading religion, they were given the spiritual keys. So these spiritual keys were passed down mouth to mouth in these sort of secret societies, and just think about how we have evolved. Um, and absolutely, our societies have been built upon hierarchies. And so it is always those at the upper echelons that would have sort of the closer contact to the spiritual teachings, right? So that they were given the keys. And this is where the ancient philosophers were giving, their understanding of these keys. But then what happened is that along our sort of evolution, as we became more civilized, philosophy split into science and religion and metaphysics. Prior to that, philosophy was comprised of all of those aspects of study, which are really bodies of knowledge to be able to guide us. Um, and so that became separated. But, again, because man has to be able to understand their human nature and rise above that. So even those people that held on to these spiritual keys, these spiritual truths and wisdoms, they didn't want to give it all out at once because they didn't want that information to fall upon what they call the profane. They didn't want it to be the eyes of the profane to see that in case these spiritual truths or knowledges were misused because they're powerful. And the truth is, again, it's a matter of unfoldment, it's a matter of raising the consciousness of the individual in order to be able to rise to that divine truth that is embodied within the teaching. And so you can be given a specific axiom, and there is an exoteric truth to that, but there is also an esoteric truth. And we arrive at the esoteric truth by being able to tap into that knowledge with our soul. And then, as we tap into that with our soul, that wisdom or knowledge then starts to bubble up and rises to our consciousness. And then we have a shift of our awareness. And what that actually happens is it changes the pathways within the brain. It changes the pathways because the brain is really just a filtering organism or filtering computer to be able to, navigate this world. But it's spirit, it's consciousness that is in charge of everything. So even though we're this, biological organism, it's consciousness, that intelligence consciousness that keeps everything organized. And so I'll go into a little bit more about organized consciousness in future talks because it can be a little bit overwhelming to delve into it all at once. I believe anyway. Um, but so this comes to our healing, and so spiritually, most of us have been wounded because we're a soul and we're existing in a very barren, barren world. One that is been very material, right? So we have been conditioned to see just through the five senses and not through our soul, not through our intuitive sense, not through um, our creative sense. And and so we've become out of kilter. And so that divine feminine, divine masculine aspects that we all have and is further embodied within our society has been distorted. And so that's why I say that it's patriarchy that has really asphyxiated um, spirit from our societies. The divine feminine has been completely eradicated from our society, but it's the divine feminine that is the creative force of our existence, is the creative force of our being, right? It is the creative force of our society, that divine energy. It is how we bring into being what we want to manifest. Because if we understand that everything comes from spirit first, because there's a mental aspect, and mental is just the spiritual that is it lays below the spiritual plane, but that is where our mind resides. And we have to be able to tap into that consciousness, but it comes through our soul. And our soul is both male, masculine, and feminine combined, and it's through understanding these creative forces that we bring ourselves to become fully realized spiritual individuals. Okay. And so that can be really very intense. And so, we have all of these woundings that block this energy, that block the soul energy. So if we think about a wounding, okay, and really all that is that it's denied an aspect of our soul. And so, as we've cut ourselves off from an aspect of our soul, we have that loss of flow of energy from spirit, which vitalizes us, which guides us. Spirit is the masculine force, our soul is the feminine source. Okay. And so, just like, and listen, guys, if you're listening to this now, and Stacey, I really thank you for that comment because, I have only a couple of people watching right now, but really, honestly, truly, it just makes it validating to me to see that comment, uh, that it may lift and raise just one individual, because I know that when one individual rises, that allows for us all to rise. And this is the process of ascension. This is the This is the purpose. This is written in the divine plan. And so there is the great divine plan that's unfolding. And so as we return back to spirit, as we return back to learning how to live from the soul and balance the feminine and masculine energies, then we will restore life back to the material plane. And so the ancients knew to bring spiritual practice with it to everything. Okay. And it's through that spiritual practice that we invite spiritual energies to come be with us. So if you think that when you're praying and giving gratitude, yes, it's for your soul, it will help shift energy, but it also invites higher spiritual beings to come draw closer to us, to further inspire and guide us. Okay. So when you have the energy of gratitude, the energy of giving thanks to spirit, because it is spirit that provides everything, right? It is the divine. Everything comes from spirit through the divine mother into creation. And so what's happened over the years is that these teachings have been bastardized and it's been contained so that the spiritual elements have been stripped away. And you'll hear this in the teachings of mystery schools where they talk about separating the chaff, the wheat from the chaff. And that is really truly what you, as an individual that is seeking, that is looking to grow and ascend and understand, is that you must learn how to separate the wheat from the chaff. Okay. Um, so I go on these little rants and I lose track of where spirit was guiding me. um, Divine feminine, thank you. So ancient cultures, they worship both the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And that's not to say that there are two ultimate supreme beings. There's only one ultimate supreme being, but there is a dual aspects to that. And so you can see the divine feminine in ancient cultures that have been worshipped. And then there are other ancient cultures, like the ancient Egyptians worshipped the divine masculine through Ra. But as patriarchy became more dominant, and again, it is about control, because let's face it, those that are on the upper echelons that are getting all of the gold and controlling all of the peasants, they don't want us to rise up because that might shake their foundation, right? They might have to share some of their wealth. That, and that's where the spirit of lack comes in, and that's where the mind of the human comes in, because again, mankind is fallen. And so those spiritual truths, they became themselves sort of twisted. They lost the spiritual aspect of it because it, the ego, the human ego became involved. And so our great, the ancient priests and priestess, they may have become afflicted with ego and also started to distort the teachings. And honestly, truly, the ego is a really it's a really it's almost a deviant sort of uh, entity in itself. It has the way that we sort of personify things and take things personally. Um, it can be very, very subtle. And listen, guys, like if you're watching this, truly, truly, you can see this with people that are wanting to be spiritual teachers or give guidance, but it all comes from the me, and it's not about the me. It's about disseminating the spiritual truths so that it may be understood and received, and that we can restore order to our world ultimately. And that's where we're at right now. We see the material world falling. And we see that really, I mean, in every sphere. And so as I was going on um, earlier, and I'm not sure if it was contained in this particular live or the one that I did just a moment ago that didn't contain audio. But all of the ancient knowledge comes from the ancient Egyptians, and they got theirs from Atlantis, and they were believed to have come from the stars. So the original knowledge or wisdom um, that was given here to mankind in the beginning came from the stars, came from enlightened beings. And you'll see that honored or replicated in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs that they honor star people. In fact, almost every ancient culture um, honor the stars and they honor the star people, and that is because they were visited by higher beings, higher spiritually evolved beings that gave the keys, gave all of the knowledge that you needed to have in order to be able to become your true divine self. But it became bastardized. And this is the really it's the process of evolution, right? Um, and so going back to that, when we heal ourselves, we remove those blocks of psychic energy from our soul. And thus, then we get more knowledge, more power from our soul. And that's what gives us the healing to our mind, body, and spirit. And that healing, it transmits to our cells, to our DNA, and it is further passed down in our lineage. It's also transmuted back to our ancestors who are continuing to evolve on the spiritual plane also. But the greater evolution comes here in the physical plane as we put the tests into action. And really, this is what it comes down to: is learning to understand um, how to navigate the tests that we get. You know, in ancient times, we would call them initiations, moving through the spirit, moving through a certain initiation to arrive at a different state, a higher state of being. Um, and so what happens again is that as we heal our soul, we heal our psyche, and psyche is just the Greek root word for soul. So let's not complicate that any more than we need to. Mental illness is just a spiritual illness because mental is about the psyche, which is about the soul. And is it not any wonder that we are suffering mentally because our soul is not being honored in our society and on any level? And so, you know, as we start to sort of grow, we start to want to we understand that those in our society also, each of us have to be honored in a specific and certain way. Everyone is on their own soul journey of growing their soul, of evolving, of ascending. And we know that they're ascending because that is the divine plan. And if you see an individual that is having a particular negative, unfortunate experience, know that their soul has come in with this particular lesson that they're looking to be able to experience, and they're struggling, right? And it's about learning to realize, again, the divine nature of the soul. But we don't know what their karma is. We don't know what they came in with, what dharma or their family lineage. This is why we see generations upon generations of poverty, of illness, of mental health, um, of abuse. Let's just say that, like abuse. We understand this in the world of psychology, that abuse is cyclical because it's passed down generations, because you got one wounded person raising another wounded person, but we're all wounded because our true nature is not acknowledged. And so we live in this really sort of masculine world that has had the divine stripped from it. And again, is it any wonder that we have rampant mental health issues and addiction um, in our world today? So um, I've been chatting for a bit, and I'm going to say thank you very much for watching me. And I'm just going to finish this with a tarot card draw. Guys, if you enjoy this in any way at all, if you found this helpful, please do like and share this for me. Um, and if just one person gets uplifted from this, then I feel that I have done my job. as we all learn to walk with more soul and with more spirit um, in our lives. And again, as each one of us rise, everyone else will all we rise as a collective. And the spiritual planes continue to evolve too, because we have spiritual beings that are evolving still and are working with us. The more that we open up ourselves to these spiritual beings to guide us, they grow too. They learn how to communicate with us as humans. They learn to bring us what do we need? What does our level of consciousness, and what is it able to receive so that we can further manifest and become our true divine self. Um, yeah, I'm going to start doing this every Friday, Stacey. So thank you. And truthfully, I had stopped doing a lot of lives there for a while. I used to do a lot of lives on Facebook. And truthfully, once COVID hit and I had my family at home, I had to really focus on my unit, and it was also time for me to go deeper within my own healing to be able to understand um, the spiritual teachings that I wanted to be able to share, because I really do feel that is my purpose to be able to share spiritual teachings. I've always believed that that was my purpose, and I believe that spirit guides me to do so. So please do give it a like and share. And I'm just going to draw one card, and I'm shuffling with the intention of guidance for whoever may be watching at this time. And so whether this be now live or if you're watching the replay, this is the guidance that you need at this time. A tarot is a ancient tool of divinity, or divination, I should say, and it is a mirror of the soul. But it's also a mirror of our collective consciousness. Stacey, honestly, love, bless you for saying that. Thank you. So this is kind of fitting. I always love the validation that tarot brings. I always find that it validates what I am talking about. So we have the moon here. The moon is a major arcana card. It is a soul learning card, and this is all about things sort of rising to the surface and unfolding or revealing themselves. So really take the time to be aware of what your dreams are, what intuitive hunches that you're having. Be aware of any self deception that you may be having at this time, because let's face it, as humans, we get wrapped up in our mind, and we do have a tendency to be self deceptive. It is all about the healing journey and recognizing those blocks, recognizing um, where we are looking to grow. So be aware of any self deception or anyone else around you that may be deceiving themselves, which ultimately deceives you. Okay. But just allowing yourself to know that things are coming to the surface and that it will be revealed, um, and to trust your intuitive hunches. Oh, that's crazy, Stacy. Crazy. But I'm just gonna say that's the collective consciousness, man. Listen, everything lines up for a reason, and that if that does not prove it, you can't make this stuff up. So again, guys, I'm going to be going live next Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Please do give it a like and just share. And I thank you very much for watching. And I wish you very many blessings. Bye for now.